all of you are believers in hybrid vigor and the positive results we get from crossbreeding. My wife wanted this one and said, don't get so excited about crossbreeding that you act like you're a southern preacher. And I'll try not to do that, but I do get a little excited as I talk about crossbreeding and advantages of crossbreeding. Just this summer, my little 8-year-old grandson and I were traveling around checking cows and this kind of thing. We were looking at 2 different pasture fields, and I said to Ty, I believe the pasture is a lot better on this farm we were at than over the other farm. Ty said, Granddaddy, it's not the pasture, it's just hybrid vigor. He's 8 years old. I sold him on the idea of hybrid vigor, and I hope I can sell you on the real importance of it. And if we don't do it as commercial producers, we're just leaving money at the table. A lot of my career I spent in the swine industry, but I wouldn't be giving this talk to swine producers anymore. Do you know why? The swine producers who believe they can get by using purebreds are no longer swine producers. They went broke. If they didn't embrace crossbreeding and hybrid vigor, they couldn't make it in the commercial swine industry at all. So I hope you can appreciate why I'm such a strong believer in crossbreeding. We crossbreed to improve profitability, make more money, very simply. By capturing the benefits of heterosis and hybrid vigor, and we always use those terms interchangeably, and I'll use one or the other, but that's what we really are crossbreeding for, and we're doing it because it's free. The benefits are free. I see just a few of you have caps over here. When I was teaching, a lot of students wore caps, and I asked them, how many of them bought the caps? Almost no one bought the caps. And my wife gets on to me because I have 2 or 3 shelves full of caps. You know why I take those caps? Because they're free. So we need to think of hybrid vigor in that same vein. It really is free. And by crossbreeding, we have the opportunity to take advantage of the assets of the various breeds of livestock we might have involved. And Simmental certainly contributes a lot to that program. It's very, very important assets that we have to offer, and we all need to be aware of those assets and do a good job promoting the assets of our breed in the crossbreeding program. I'm going to give a quick slide on hybrid vigor. If we have 2 breeds, breed A and breed B, and we're not going to talk about Simmental or anything else right now, then we get a 2-breed crossbred that's a 1/2 A and 1/2 B. And if breed A has a value of 100, breed B has a value of 100, and the crossbred animal has a value of 110, then we have 10% direct hybrid vigor or heterosis. 10% improvement. That's simply what we're talking about when we talk about hybrid vigor. Now, if we go a step further and take the 3rd breed, breed C, and bring that to an AB crossbred, we're going to have an animal that's a C, quarter A, and quarter B. Now, breed C has a value of 102. Breed AB has a phenotype of 110, but only a genetic value of 100. See, that's a little different there. And then we wind up with the crossbred animal with a value of 120. So what we have here is maternal heterosis of 10% and direct heterosis plus maternal equal 20%. So big deal here is that we've got a crossbred female here. Oh, I punched the wrong button. That's a problem. If you look That's very sensitive. That's the red button is. The big deal is that the big thing that we need to realize is the real importance of that crossbred female, because that allows us to get that extra heterosis. We don't need to overlook that. Now, is there a sound scientific basis to explain hybrid vigor or heterosis? And to address that scientific basis, I want to talk about breeds and the origin of breeds. I think it's very important for us to all have an appreciation as to what our breeds are and how we got to where we are today. You've all heard of Robert Bakewell. Bakewell is an English stockman who lived from 1725 to 1795. And Bakewell, we can say he's the respected English stockman who was largely responsible for developing livestock breeds. I'd always heard that he had shire horses and life sheep, longhorn cattle, that kind of thing. A few years ago, I was writing a chapter for a international genetics book on swine, and I was writing the first chapter on breeds and origin of breeds. And when I got to looking up the origin of the large white breed of hogs, old Robert Bakewell was involved in developing that breed as well. My point here is that Bakewell and Bakewell's principles are largely responsible for developing most of the breeds of livestock that we know today. Bakewell never sold his males, he only leased them. Only leased his males. So, Wade, he was really doing progeny testing. He'd go back and see those progeny and decide which males he needed to bring back into his own herd. So, he also had a very simple mating scheme. He bred the best to the best regardless of relationship. Bred the best to the best regardless of relationship. So the results were that the breeds were established by inbreeding to stabilize the traits of the breeds and the characteristics that everyone who was developing those desired. So inbreeding occurred in developing all of our breeds of cattle. You need to realize and appreciate that. Now, inbreeding versus crossbreeding, and this morning, Lauren did a very good job of talking about these ideas. Inbreeding results in an increase in the number of homozygous loci, two genes the same at one loci, in inbred individuals, and a decrease in the number of heterozygous loci. So that's what happened in developing breeds. On the other hand, crossbreeding results in a decrease in the homozygous loci, those that are alike, and an increase in heterozygous loci. Now, very simple discussion here about how genes function. For those of you might remember a biology class, even in high school, or particularly in college, we talked about one gene, one enzyme, or one gene, one protein. Still yet today, that's what we think happens. One gene codes for an enzyme or a protein, and that's how they function. So if we have an animal that has G1, G1, now we're not going to talk about big, little. Lauren talked about genes that influence quantitative traits. Jackie showed you genes with different values, or those SNPs she showed you that have different values. So not the big, little anymore, but genes that have different functions. An animal that has a G1, G1 genotype could only produce the G1 product, whatever it be. An animal's G2, G2 could produce only a G2 product. But if we get an animal that's heterozygous, which is what we get by crossbreeding, theoretically it's possible to produce both G1 and G2 products. Hope you can appreciate that this gives an animal the ability to produce more different kinds of genetic products by being more heterozygous. A former student of mine, a young man named Charles Parker, is head of human genomics down at Charlottesville, Virginia, University of Virginia. And he's truly an outstanding molecular geneticist. And I called Charles up and asked him, I said, Charles, what's your best explanation for hybrid vigor? This young man grew up on beef bird with 400 cows, so I know he really appreciates hybrid vigor. And he said very simply, hybrid vigor is the result of genetic buffering, the genetic buffering effect of crossbreeding that gives us all these advantages. What genetic buffering means, what it does is wiping away the inbreeding effect within purebreds. We talked about the inbreeding that has occurred in purebreds for all these years, and is continuing to occur at a faster rate, I'll tell you in a moment. And what crossbreeding does is wipes away that inbreeding effect in purebreds. And it also creates many more heterozygous loci that result in more favorable enzyme and protein combinations, which results in the improvement of overall vigor or physical fitness to improve performance. And we might add, and by the way, my friend Barbara added the same, very important to understand this part, the more harsh the environmental conditions, the greater the advantage of hybrid vigor. The tougher the environmental conditions, the more the advantage there is from hybrid vigor. Now, has inbreeding in breeds with closed herds book, like American Angus. We're not closed. Everybody understands closed herds book, what they are? And has inbreeding in breeds with closed herd books increased or decreased during the last 25 to 30 years? Tell me, increased or decreased? Increased. Increased. Very correct. No question. Has increased. What's the effect of extensive use of artificial insemination and ET on genetic variation in a closed breed? Increased inbreeding or decreased inbreeding? Increased inbreeding. You get my point, I hope. This inbreeding effect in purebred breeds of livestock becomes greater all time as we get more information to help us explain genetic values and all those kind of things, because we use more common sires. What about Holsteins in Jersey? We got data on those two. Molecular inbreeding determined by DNA results shows that in Holstein, the average inbreeding today is 6.5%. In Jersey, 7.5%, and I believe the value that I saw was that Holsteins are increasing about 0.5% a year. Jerseys are now increasing about 0.7% a year. So both of them are continuing to increase because we have a lot more information about the sires and using a lot more time-related sires. What beef breeds do you know that have had a decrease in genetic variation in recent years, resulting by fewer and fewer influential sires that have greater and greater genetic influence on the breed? Which beef breeds? Well, you can tell me several, I'm sure, but particularly those two. All of you know who EXT is in Black Angus cattle, I'm sure. Most widely used sire in the history of Angus breed. And so by using sires of that nature, of course, we're continuing to increase inbreeding and increasing the relationship to those very influential sires. 20 years ago, or 25, I had a student go through the big Hereford journal. It was just thick then, not now, it was then. I had to go through the Hereford journal and look at every herd sire mentioned in that Hereford journal and count the percentage of them that were line one. What percentage of the Herefords you quote had line one relationship? More than 60% 20 years ago. So you know the Hereford has a very narrow genetic base and they become more inbred all the time. How about Simmental? Where do we stand? Are we doing the same thing or different? Same. Well, we have an open herd book, but let's look at some things. What percent of Simmental cattle in the U.S. have Nicholas Legacy G151 in pedigree? I called Wade to ask him about who shear force and dream on. Wade said I could do better. Steve McGuire had just looked this up. By the way, we need to thank Steve. Steve does such a wonderful job. He doesn't get enough recognition for his we really appreciate the capability of just doing this. It's just now a finger, and we appreciate all you do. This date was surprising to me. I knew that we were doing a little bit of this kind of thing, but there are 373,176 animals that have legacy in the pedigree. And it counts per generation. Like in the third generation, 150,519. The fourth generation, 119,276. So maybe we're doing a little bit of the same thing Angus and Herefords have done. We all know that in this room. Now, let's ask the question. Does hybrid vigor offer equal or greater or less advantage than 25, 30 years ago? I'm not going into research data about hybrid vigor. Our next speaker, Dr. Scott Bradner, has done an excellent article that many of you have seen. It's available. He did a wonderful job in covering the research data that's been published concerning hybrid vigor. So I'm not going to do that today, but I'm going to talk about the concepts and try to be assured that those of us in this room believe strongly in hybrid vigor and got better reason to believe that it's very important. Okay, how many of you say that hybrid vigor offers greater advantage than 25, 30 years ago? Let's see your hands. Less advantage. Well, at least I didn't see any hands go for less. How about for the future? There's no question the hybrid vigor offers the most advantage today it's ever offered in history, and it will become greater and greater as time goes on. That's the message I'd like you to take away from this presentation, is that hybrid vigor is not only important today, but it'll be important next year, the next year, and the next year. So we need to all leave this program, these programs, being strong proponents of promoting hybrid vigor to the hills. Do Simmental breeders have a big advantage because ASA has an open herd book? Why, of course we do. That gives us the opportunity to broaden our genetic base, and it allows us to bring in desirable animals. Fred, go ahead, very good.
One question for you though, as we chase the API, and we do chase it, this line breeding becomes even more effective as we go to those sires. If we want to look at those genetics that continuously get us those top APIs, that's where we go back to. So what are we doing, Gordon? I mean, what are we actually doing, Gordon?
Well, Fred, that may well be true, but what I'm wanting us to get around to, I don't care if we do that within Simmental. We need to appreciate what we need to do for the commercial producer. That's what I want us to get at. Well, has the Sim Angus program been beneficial?
Yes.
Well, of course it has. It's given us the chance to broaden our genetic base, and it's certainly given us variability for some traits that we needed, namely cavities and marking from Angus, right? We just well admit that. This population has changed. But it's been a really big deal, and it's great that we still have that opportunity to continue to do that kind of thing over the next few years. Now, let's look quickly at what traits are most depressed by inbreeding, and Laura referred to these a bit this morning, but let's do this one more time. I'm going to give you some key examples. I spent a lot of my career in the pig industry. I'm going to give you some examples of some of these as we talk about these, without giving you data. Fertility. There is no question of what we do when we crossbreed. Hybrid vigor affects every trait related to hybrid vigor. Females reach puberty earlier, postpartum intervals are shorter, so much positive. Males have more libido. I remember a few years, well, several years ago, I was traveling in the Philippines, and the Filipinos wanted to use Hampshire hogs in their breeding programs. But they had a lot of trouble with Hampshires. And if any of you know anything about Hampshire hogs, there was a period of time when one breeder totally dominated Hampshire breed hogs. Hampshires were, at that time, the largest breed of hogs in the U.S. We more hogs than Durocs or Yorkshires. This one breeder, one year, they always did an analysis each year in the July issue of the Hampshire herdsman to show where the herd sires had come from. 47 of 50 herd sires had come from this one breeder. And the story goes that when he would sell boars, he would send a few vials of testosterone home with those boars. Is that good or bad? That's bad. That breed had become really inbred and had a tremendous problem with fertility. And so Filipinos needed good because they need to make hogs leaner. Hampshires, we were the leanest breed of hogs we had. Well, I was in the Philippines, I guess it was 1980, and I recommended them what they could do is simply cross those Hampshires with Durocs and make a Hampshire Duroc crossbred boar. I was fortunate to be back there 2 years later, 3 years and 4 years back, and what kind of boars were they using? They were tipping the bed. All they were using were those hybrid boars. Duroc Hampshire crossbred, but when you turn that one out, you know, instead of not having any libido, I heard one lady say on her farm that she started trying to use those F1 boars, that boar would jump 10 gates to get to a sow and heat. So we change fertility traits when we crossbreed in a very, very positive way. Newborn survival rate. Newborn survival rate. Wade talked a lot about it this morning. Such a big issue. At the university where I'm teaching, I like to let students in swine production lab do things so they can see and learn by seeing or doing. And I took we had a Yorkshire style herd, and I bred half the sows each breeding season. I breed half the sows to Yorkshire boarders, and I breed half the sows to a Duroc or Hampshire board. And then I let those students sit and watch those sows farrow. And then what I had to do is to measure the amount of time it took for each pig to get his mouth on a teat. That's a pretty good indication of how well they're going to survive. So we had purebred Yorkshire pigs being born and going to a teat, and crossbred pigs being born and going to a teat. Which one's got to the teat quicker? The crossbreds, and the difference, 20 minutes on a purebred pig, 20 minutes on a crossbred pig on average, about 45 on a purebred pig. Just an example of what happens when we crossbreed. We gotta all be believers, because this is exactly what happens. We improve these traits immensely when we crossbreed. Now this is the one where we attempted to do a bit of research in. It's very difficult to quantify in research setting. But I want to assure you that health and vigor, and particularly chronic disease resistance, not acute disease, because acute disease is going to kill any of them. But chronic disease resistance, like diarrhea. One of the really good examples, one of my former students, a really good commercial hog producer, he now produces about 250,000 hogs a year. But he had his own line of purebred Yorkshire hogs in his herd, and the rest of his hogs were commercial hogs and free-breed crops. And he got a very severe diarrhea problem in his pigs. And I knew he was trying to identify what antibiotics would work, that kind of thing, and I visited with him a week or 10 days later, and I said, Jerry, how have you done with the diarrhea problem? Well, he said, we've got to fix those. We have to treat all the pigs. We're treating with an antibiotic. He says we can save 90 to 100% of the crossbred pigs, but he said we're lucky to save 10 to 20% of the purebreds. Is that pretty good evidence? What happens? If we have chronic disease problems, crossbred animals are simply going to be much, much better at handling those conditions than purebreds. No question about longevity. I'll have another slide on that in a second, but we sure improve the length of productive life in females in every species when we crossbreed. Now, one that's not often mentioned in the research literature, but I believe is one of the real biggies, is the consistency of performance or uniformity of animals. One day last fall, my son, we still have pigs, one day last fall, my son, Bart, called me one day and said, Dad, I wish you were here with me. He was at one of our finishing barns that has 12 pens of pigs. He had 10 pens of crossbred pigs and 2 pens of purebred pigs. He said, I'd like to bring commercial cattle people here and show them these pigs. I believe I could convince them not to use Angus on Angus. He said those 10 pigs are crossbred pigs, could everyone go to market without getting any sort balls go at the same time. And he said there was 75 pounds variation in the purebred pens. That's a biggie. I'll tell one more story about consistency, performance here, and uniformity. Another commercial producer that I worked with for years, he started out with an operation that had 640 sites. And when he got ready, now his breeding program, let me tell you this, his breeding program, his females were all Landrace Yorkshire crossbreds. Landrace Yorkshire females get 100% hybrid vigor in his sows, and then he was mating those to Duroc boar for terms. So just like I showed a while ago, Duroc boar on crossbred white females. When he expanded from 640 to 1280 sows, he didn't have enough of those Landrace Yorkshires. So he kept Duroc sire gilts. And those Duroc sire gilts got bred back to Duroc boars. You see what we're doing here now? Bred back to Duroc boars. And then I would walk through his finishing barns. He has 1,000 head finishing barns. And I'd walk through those finishing barns and we'd see a lot of these little, I call them little junker red pigs. But then I had some students walk those barns and count the junker red ones and junker black ones. There should be equal number of black ones too, based on that training scheme. And sure enough, they were all the same number of red ones and black ones. Now, what's the point here is, you see, those little jumper pigs were all the result of that back to two-rock sire gills. That's what they were. The others were very uniform. To put that into dollar figures, he could sell those pins without sorting in those finishing barns. If they were Duroc and Landrace Yorkshire crosses, he could sell those pigs for less than 50 cents a hundred sort loss. When he mixed those up with the wrong combination there, his sort loss was more than $2.50 a hundred. Sort loss, just because the pigs weren't bred right, all of them didn't have enough hybrid vigor. So this is a biggie that we often miss, is this uniformity of performance of the calves when we crossbreed. Now, what traits are most improved? And I won't spend time on this, but it's exactly the same traits. We improve fertility, we improve newborn survival, we improve health or vigor, longevity, and we improve consistency of performance or uniformity of performance. Heritability versus hybrid vigor, and this has already been referred to. I won't spend much time on this, but generally, the traits that are low in heritability, the ones that are hard to improve by selection, are the ones we improve by crossbreeding. The ones that are high on the list here being reproduction, disease resistance, longevity, no question they're highly improved. Now, carcass traits, we get no improvement. Carcass traits, the traits that Laura mentioned, 46% hybrid vigor up to around 50. We only improve those with crossbreeding. We get an average of the two breeds, but don't only improve them as a result of hybrid vigor. We get moderate improvement in growth rate. Now I want to throw something else out here. During the last 6 months, I've heard a few English breeders, good friends of mine, English breeders. And Scott, they wondered, said, boy, I wonder what the results of crossbreeding would be if we used modern Angus genetics. What a stupid question. The results would be greater if we use the ones now because they're more inbred than they were 25 years ago. The results would be greater. And that's one of the things, and they're going to tell you, the English breeders are going to tell you that our cattle outgrow Simmental. There are some bulls whose calves will outgrow Simmental. Does that mean we don't need to crossbreed? That does not mean we don't need to crossbreed. I like to talk about this, but particularly longevity production varies with various data we look at, but about 1.3 calves extra lifetime production. Our Dr. Bob Weaver says about $100 per cow for your advantage when we crossbreed. It's at least that, I'm confident, at least $100. Commercial man is using Angus on Angus on Angus is giving up that at least $100 a year, I believe. Now, I've mentioned this before, but let's just hit it quickly. The roles, environmental conditions on hybrid, degree of hybrid vigor, the more stressful the environment, the greater the advantage of hybrid vigor to become. And we're talking about drought or limited feed resources or parasitic situation, heat and humidity, or cold. Particularly heat and humidity is big in there. But anytime those conditions get worse, then we get bigger advantages from hybrid vigor. Now, I'll ask you this. I think this is very important and we don't often address this at all. Research results versus farm and ranch results. So, I want to ask you this question. Are the feed resources and management in university and USDA research herds comparable to or better than on most farms and ranches? Feed resources and management on university and USDA farms better or worse than most farms and ranches? Tell me, better or worse? Better. Much better. Of course they are. And I believe on most university herds or most USDA stations, I don't think the stock rate is as high as it is on most farms and ranches either. So not near so stressful. So, can we conclude that the improvement from heterosis or hybrid vigor is likely to be greater in most commercial herds than the values reported in the scientific literature? I believe we can conclude that for sure. That the data that we would gain from farm and ranch settings will show that hybrid vigor has a greater advantage than that reported in the scientific literature. Now, I just threw this slide in. I have a lot of friends who breed Angus cattle, and I respect them very much, and I like Angus cattle. They've made unbelievable strides in improving a lot of areas. But what would you get if you were a producer, been using Angus over the years? You get 100% of the cows be black and whole. Good? Maybe good. Whole for sure. We can debate the color, but whole for sure. 100% of cows would meet the color requirement for CAB. Probably good, right? We don't care if there's a black you're telling them how much we pay for them. We can been using the beef breed with the largest number of high marbling bulls. We can all be positive about that too, can't we? So 3 very positive things about black Angus cattle. Let's look at the rest of them. We've been using the beef breed with the largest mature cow size, larger than Charolais, Limousin, Simmental, or Gelby at the USD Experiment Station in Miles at Clay Center. So the biggest breed. We've been using the beef breed with the highest average milk production, which results in, as Wade told us, certainly increased maintenance requirements. Using the breed with the biggest cows, size and milk production going to cause them to have more maintenance requirements. So if that's what we're using, we likely can run more or fewer cows per farm. Fewer cows per farm, right? And we'll be using the breed with just average or below industry average muscling. Ribeye per hundredweight would be just average or below average for muscling. So, is that what we should be doing? I think not. I get none of the advantages of hybrid vigor if we did that. Now, we talked about breed complementarity, and I'll quickly hit that here. Continental by British, we get increased growth. We don't get hybrid vigor for growth. Now, we don't get hybrid vigor for muscle, but let me assure you that our breed is a heavy muscle breed of cattle. Heavy muscle breed of cattle. My experience is we're using feeders. We feed all our cattle. We feed these Simmental crosses. We don't feedlots where we feed to make 2 kills. We never let them kill Simmental cattle on the first kill because we know they got enough muscle to go 35 more days and not ever become yield grade 4s. Never fed a yield grade 4 steer. If we take all our Simmental cattle at heavier weights, stay 35 days longer than British breeds. Big thing I want you to really appreciate, and I think many of you knew this, and Dr. Blackman's sitting there, he knows the way we reduce seam fat. Seam fat's that old bad fat between the muscles, and the way we reduce that is by having heavier muscle cattle. I think one of the reasons, the way talking to you about the fact that ribeye area is involved in feed intake equation, I think one of the big reasons is that when cattle are growing muscle, they're not growing seam fat. Seam fat's taking a lot more energy to grow than muscle is. So I think we have such a big advantage in our breed by having a lot of muscle in our breed. Don't need to relax that. We need to keep that advantage for sure. And that results in better feed efficiency, particularly as we take them to heavier weights. Not any question. If they're still growing muscle, they're going to continue to be efficient. If they start growing fat, that pounds of feed per pound of gain goes up real quickly. We probably haven't promoted that advantage of our cattle quite enough. And I hope all of us in this room will promote that a little bit more. And we have improved yield grades without having yield grade weighting so high. And he didn't have that yield grade way up there because our cattle already got it, so we don't need to weight that so high in that equation. And we can have heavier carcasses with less excess fat. So those are big advantages using Simmental or Continental cattle in a crossbreeding program with British cattle. No question, these are all big advantages. How about composites? Well, the greatest problem that we've had with composites in early years was lack of genetic evaluation system for hybrids because we had no way to get accurate EPDs. I remember the first ones we made, we sent them to the Red Angus Association before we were associated with Simmental. And lower, we just got half the value because we got nothing on the cow side. So APDs were terrible. But International Genetic Solutions, all of you in this room need to be familiar with International Genetic Solutions. Wade alluded to the fact that we have 12 breeds associated. The American Simmental Association began performing a multi-breed genetic evaluation in '97. Today, we have 12 breed associations involved in IGS. We're the largest multi-breed genetic evaluation in the world that's conducted by ISA. And now, we can get accurate EPDs on composites. So that problem has been eliminated. So we do have very good genetic information.
Even accurate, we are not just the largest multi-breed, we're the largest database.
Largest total database, yes. But we do the multi-breed, which gives us accurate value. Take out the heterosis effect. Now, retained hybrid vigor. In the first generation, if we cross Simmental by Angus, we get 100% hybrid vigor. Second generation, if we cross half Simmental by half Angus, half Simmental, female, male for female, we get 50% maternal heterosis and 50% direct. Now, my good friend Morton Hodges listened to my presentation earlier this year, a little different this one, but he said you didn't give enough credit and emphasize enough importance for Simmental breeders. If this is a first generation deal here now, that's 100% maternal hybrid vigor, if that's the first generation. Right? 100% hybrid vigor in that cow, it's the first generation female. But then from thereafter, and to address that question earlier, hybrid vigor will remain constant. Hybrid vigor will remain constant at 50% throughout multiple generations. If inbreeding is avoided, now that's the important thing, and Jim Butcher alluded to this in his response to it earlier. We've got to watch what we're doing here. We want to continue to have that 50% inbreeding, and particularly we need to work with our commercial producers to make sure they're not using related sires each time. It's not so bad for us because we're trying to produce a genetic product to go to the commercial herd, but the commercial herd doesn't need to be using those related sires. Now, why Sim Angus, Lim Flex, and Gelby balance are increasing popularity? It's a simple system. And all three of those kinds of cattle have gained popularity continuously, year after year, the last few years, because it's a very simple system that gives us 50% retained hybrid vigor. I like this statement. Many of you may know who Chip Ramsey is, but Chip Ramsey is managing one of the largest ranches in the country. He has managed Deseret in Florida, but he now manages the ranch in Nebraska. He simply says, I'm not a good enough manager not to crossbreed, and I think that's a very good statement. Not a good enough manager not to crossbreed. Now, I'm going to give you a few closing thoughts. I want to cover these, and they're not all directly related to crossbreeding, but I think we should, as commercial producers, and most of us are purebred breeders in this room, but we want to become that purebred breeder. We want to be a seed stock supplier whose selection program is based on improving those traits that Wade talked about, being economically relevant traits. Commercial producers don't. That's what they really need to be doing. They need to seek seed stock suppliers whose breeding program is doing this. We need to choose bulls. This second one here, I feel is very, very important, and it varies around the country. Commercial producers need to be choosing bulls that are adaptable to your farm environment. In other words, the forage resources and climate and so forth needs to be pretty similar to yours. For a commercial producer who doesn't need to be buying bulls 1,500 miles away, most likely. They probably need to be buying bulls that are produced in the same kind of environment, the same kind of feed resources, forage resources, and climate. I find a lot of difference in cattle, and Wade, these are hard to discern with our genetic evaluation system. We're in a fescue environment, Tennessee, Kentucky, Virginia, a lot of fescue, and some cattle can handle it well, others cannot, and we've got to be really careful in the fescue environment about buying seed stock cattle outside the fescue environment. And I do believe that we need to select superior bulls by using economic selection indexes. Commercial producers need to be doing that. I'm sorry, I just hit the wrong button there. I think for commercial producers, it's very important, and I put this slide in about, I know in the room here this morning, we have many smaller breeders. I think one of the ways we can assist commercial producers, I found this to be a big deal. Many commercial producers do not understand their cow herd. They don't really know what they need to be buying. So we as purebred breeders, it's part of our task as seed stock suppliers to work with those commercial producers. Non-trimmer, I know that's what you do is they ask the seed supplier, try to work with commercial producers to fit the pool to their farms. We need to improve the traits that are most needed in that cow herd. Know that cow herd and try to work on that first. The advantages of hybrid figure and commercial cow herds are likely greater than literature reported value. We said that a few minutes ago, and I think that's one of the important points in my talk that I hope you'll take home with you. Plan your crossbreeding system to take advantage of the free lunch of hybrid vigor and breed complementarity. And the last one's the most important, I think. Some hybrid vigor is better than none. And choose a simple mating scheme that works on your farm. The advantages gained by crossbreeding are greater today than ever before and are likely to increase in the future. So for the future, we need to be encouraging, not less, but a lot more crossbreeding than we've been encouraging in the past. It's been a pleasure to be with you. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to take them. I know Jackie says we've got to move on. I don't take too much of Scott's time, but we would entertain. Go ahead, Don.
You know, in your presentation, you're talking about combining pure and live. If we look at the data that's in here, really 40% of the Simmental breed anymore is purebred. You know, when I pick up the wholesale catalog, the smallest section of the purebred goes anymore, and then there's 3/4, half bloods, and quarter bloods, 3/8 and 5/8 and various combinations. So how do we spread the message to our commercial customers to find the right bulls? Because when you go out to pens, they usually are fairly similar in their phenotype. But genetically, there are a lot different beasts between a quarter blood Simmental and a purebred Simmental.
Don, that's a very good question. And that's a challenge that we have with breeders in this room. I think we all have that challenge. And I will admit that we have made a few quarter Simmental bulls. Why did we make those quarter Simmental bulls? Because in Tennessee, and I guess Virginia, I've heard that Tennessee and Virginia, two blackest states in the country, it's just so difficult to get those older farmers, particularly who had the tagging difficulty with Simmental Charolais 30 years ago or 40, to ever think about using a Simmental or Charolais or whatever again. So if we can get them to use a bull that's just a quarter to start, that doesn't address your question. But that's the reason some of us have made those low percentage ones, is to try to just get them to think a little bit about crossbreeding when they've been using Angus Angus. Now, I think working with the producers and knowing their cow herd, what they've got, and then trying to work with them on putting together the best combination for them. I think that's really the way to do it. It's a little difficult to tell, and I know what you're saying, because phenotypically, it's hard to distinguish those bulls. We're going to have them there that are 1/4 one way, half and half, and 3/4 of 1/4 the other way. So working is really important to work with those, and Bert, I might say that I think that's an important role that our field staff can play, is in working with those prospects commercial producers and trying to assist them to buy the right books. Good question.
Okay.
Any others?